Welcome, Pat and Cal. If you can give me a little bit more information on multi-hull dynamics, that would be great.
Sure. Multi-hull dynamics was designed to help the average person who's interested in multi-hull sailboats to evaluate the differences in performance and stability from one boat to another, to include an individual boat's ability to handle rough weather, um, and be a good cruising boat or a good racing boat. It happened as a result of the fact that the formulas for evaluating multi-hull sailboats are more complicated than the formulas for evaluating monohull sailboats, and takes much more time, and is a whole different process. And so while there were several websites available, believe it or not, for monohull sailboats, there were no sites available. And still to this day, are we 13 years later, Cal?
Yeah.
13 years later, we're still the only site doing this. Although there are other sites, of course, that talk at length about multi-hull sailboats, we're the only one that does this type of thing with them. Is that helpful?
Yeah, very helpful. Great. Do you just want to give a brief introduction of like who you are?
Oh, so sorry.
No, that's okay.
I'm Pat Ross. I live in Milton, Florida, near Pensacola, Florida, and am one of the original people who designed the website. And it was a task that Cal Markwood, who's the engineering analyst for Multi-Hull Dynamics, who will speak shortly, and myself got together on some 13 or 14 years ago. And through a series of processes, we have this site now, which we're also getting ready to upgrade.
Wow, exciting, very exciting. And Cal, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Cal Markwood. I'm from Denver, Colorado. I'm a retired Air Force vet, 25 years in the Air Force, fighter pilot and other things. And then I worked for Lockheed Martin as an aerospace engineer. I started doing multi-hull analysis way back, probably the mid 1970s, when I found little information on how to compare boats. And so I developed some formulas out of some basic engineering approaches, some dimensional analysis. And then over the years, improved on those from information I got from other analysts and so forth to what we have now. When Pat contacted me, I had about 90 boats, I think, in it, that a couple of published articles on the analysis approach, and then we started digging into everything we could find and built that database up, added trimarans to it after a while, far less than the catamarans. The catamarans date back to the 1950s, actually, when they were just starting to really get popular. And as I mentioned to Melissa a little earlier while we were waiting, I concentrate on cruising boats, although I have one or two true racing catamarans. Mostly it's cruising boats that go from cruising racers to just plain cruisers. Of the two boats that we were talking about, the Katana 42 tends to have race qualities to it, as well as being a pretty phenomenal cruising boat.
It was surprising.
Yeah, the Lagoon 440, like most lagoons, are just cruising boats, with little racing potential unless you're racing against another Lagoon 440. And then it's sailor against sailor.
So we have 151 trimarans on the website and 937 catamarans at this time. Now, we may have one or two more than that. That's our best number right now. I think when we upgrade the site, we'll have a good number.
Take us through the website and what you can tell us about the Lagoon 440.
Okay.
How likely is this boat to capsize?
They all can capsize. if you try
right.
hard.
Isn't the point of the website to help us determine how likely? Maybe.
Yeah, and one of the things that's important about the website is that comparisons are relative one to the other. These formulas that I use are not fourth decimal place precise. You know, they're best estimates. The lagoon is a fairly heavy boat, and it's fairly lightly powered. The sail area is not great. So the stability speed is pretty high. That means the speed at which it would start to lift the upwind hull. And it's 25 knots, where the Katana, which has more sail and far less weight, is at 18 knots. So you can see the difference there. Doing these two boats surfaced a couple of problems that I have with data. One of them is that most of the boats are advertised as light displacement, and that's a boat with no people, no gear, no provisions for cruising on it. And the manufacturers are reluctant to give me a true cruising displacement weight. So I have to estimate that from either light boat, or from, some of them will list a light and a max. And so I go 2/3 of the way between those two numbers, but those numbers are close estimates now. The second question that Richard asked had to do with bridge deck clearance, and very few designers list that. And if I can find a good three-dimensional drawing of the boat, I can estimate what the bridge deck clearance is, but I do without it in a lot of them, and I didn't have that for either of these two boats. Katana tends to have quite a bit of bridge deck clearance, and Lagoon tends to have very relatively small, because it's, like I say, it's a cruising boat.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about the difference in what those comparisons are on their bridge deck clearance?
Okay, yeah, Katana tends to be about 30 inches, which is what we have established as a good standard, and we get that from information from a number of designers.
And what makes that a good standard? Like, what does that?
The issue is that waves tend to form between the hulls, and when the waves get high enough to where they begin to impact the hull, it can cause a rough ride, and it can cause damage if it's severe enough. And over 30 inches for the kind of boats we're talking about, 30 feet to 200, that seems to be enough to do the job. Related to that is the comparison of the spacing between the hulls and the waterline length. And if that gets too small, then the tendency to make these waves between the two hulls gets larger. So they play together.
Okay.
Another problem that shows up is that I don't analyze the difference between a boat that has dagger boards and a boat that has fixed keels on the hulls. I have no capability of doing that fine grain analysis. You'll find the dagger boards tend to be on the race boats, and the fixed keels tend to be on the cruising boats generally.
So when Cal was talking about the stability speed earlier, yes, I remember it being Shuttleworth's formula.
Okay.
And the thing is with Shuttleworth's formula is that he gives the reason I'm bringing this up is because you asked about capsize. Shuttleworth's formula, which gives the number for at which point the windward hull would begin to lift, not capsize, when the windward hull would begin to lift. So if you look at the stability speed for the Katana 42, Shuttleworth suggests that this windward hull would begin to lift at 18.37 knots. What Shuttleworth incorporated in that formula was a 40% gust factor. In other words, he's saying that if you, I beg your pardon?
That's super interesting that there's a gust factor in that.
Yes, a gust, because the wind is not constant, right?
Right.
So he put a safety factor in there of 40%. So what we tell people, or what we think is a good time to start reefing, is that 18.37 is the number you should be reefing at. because Shuttleworth is saying if you're carrying windward sail and you have a beam wind of 18.37, that the windward hull would begin to lift. So logically, we suggest that you would start reefing in this case, probably around, 17.5, 18 at the latest. But you would start planning on reefing as the wind picks up, assuming you have that kind of bearing of wind, a beam. Is that okay, Cal? Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
And I say that's important because it's not a hard, fast number, because he's put a safety factor in there.
Right.
And it's a number that you should, if you are not really familiar with your boat, start reefing before it gets there.
Right. Right.
The CalSol stability index, which is the KSI, which we do have for the Katana, is 30.89 knots. So Shuttleworth has a stability. Both of these formulas have to do with boat tipping over. Shuttleworth says the windward hull will begin. So if the wind is from the starboard side, the starboard hull would begin to lift at 18.37 knots. CalSol, on the other hand, has a CalSol stability index, which says that at 30.89 knots, or right at 31, the boat will turn over.
Oh, wow.
So CalSol's formula is about it's going over at 30 knots, and Shuttleworth's formula is that the windward hull will begin to lift at 18.
And is that for the Katana or the Lagoon?
This is for the Katana. We don't have the Lagoon stuff in.
Okay.
So, the Katana is 25.1. So, the Katana is considerably, it can handle more wind, because that windward hull is not going to, according to Shuttleworth, begin to lift till 25, where the Lagoon is not going to lift till 25, where the Katana will start lifting, according to Shuttleworth, at 18.37. Okay, does that help?
Yeah, no, I think that definitely helps a little bit on the stability factor in regard to the Katana and the Lagoon. Sure. Would you like to talk a little bit about the Bruce numbers on these boat designs?
It's a sail area divided by displacement. So the more sail area you have, the higher, for a given displacement, the higher the number will be. And the heavier the boat is, the lower the number will be. Sail area to displacement is a number that we put on the site, and don't pay too much attention to the Bruce number.
It was the number at one time, right, Cal?
Yeah.
That way back in the 60s, right, Cal? But in the earlier years, that was considered the number to determine how powerful a multi-hull would be, how fast it would be, that kind of thing.
To move on to expectations of upward performance on on both the multi-hull Lagoon 440 and the Katana 42. What can you speak on regarding the numbers on those?
The base speed is the number that I use to judge speed performance. Base speed was a number that a gentleman over in England, who is an analyst of boats, derived from a series of races that were done around Great Britain by a lot of different boats, different types, not just catamarans, but conventional boats as well. Remember, we talked about the Bruce number and about sail area divided by displacement. Sail area divided by displacement and Bruce number are kind of like power to weight ratio in a car. But boats have another factor that affects their speed a lot, and that's the waterline length of the hulls. Mm-hmm. So the Bruce or the base speed formula includes waterline length and sail area in the numerator and displacement in the denominator. So it's lumping in the length, which is really, really crucial for both. Exponents on those terms is what were calculated from analyzing the results of actual race performance of boats. So those are pretty good numbers, I think, for not the top speed, but he advertised it as a 24-hour average of 24 hours of sailing.
So we're saying that while the boat may not actually get 10.8 knots in an average in a 24-hour period, that if you compare it to the Katana, which is what stability speed on the Katana is, excuse me, the base speed on the Katana is 9.79. So we're saying that by our definition, our formulas, that the Katana is
1 knot faster.
1 knot faster. So whether they would both sail at these speeds or not, we're saying the Katana would be a knot faster. Got it?
Yeah, yep, got it. Yep.
Assuming the weight is right.
Yeah.
So when you buy, whether it's a racer or not, Melissa, weigh the boat.
Right, whether you added your solar panels and your
And there's some great designers who go back that say what you do is you even weigh the mattresses. In other words, you take everything off the boat and you weigh things as you bring it on.
What are your biggest trends that you see in catamaran design, and your biggest takeaways from your research and researching the catamaran data?
I think Cal's hit the nail on the head. Weight is the biggest problem that multi-hulls have in regarding to being successful. That's why if you look at the history of how cargo has been shipped, it's been shipped on monohulls, not because they're faster, because they can carry more weight, and therefore by design they're more efficient. Monohulls cannot carry the same amount of weight on the same waterline length. You understand waterline length, right?
Yeah.
So you can't take a 40-foot monohull and move to a 40-foot catamaran and expect to do well. You'd have to go to something, and I'm just is off the top of my head now, but if I had a 40-foot monohull and I was trying to get something that could handle the weight that I'm carrying on a 40-foot monohull, I'm probably going to look in the 52-foot range of a multi-hull to be able to carry that weight. And what Cal was talking about earlier in regards to manufacturers not wanting to give out that number in regards, because I mean, simply it's a marketing thing. And so we encourage people who are going to purchase a multi-hull to have it weighed during the survey to find out what she actually weighs. Then on our website is a page called the custom evaluation page, and it allows you to plug all these numbers, all the specifications for any boat, and run our formulas on any boat you want for free. And then you could run those numbers, accurate numbers,
based on your custom weight of their boat. Yeah.
I think the other thing to understand too about these formulas is that when we talk about the stability speed being 18.37 on the Katana and the stability speed on the the base speed on the stability speed of 25.1 on the Lagoon, that these are relative to each other. And that's what Cal, I think, was saying earlier. They may not be the exact numbers, but the relationship to each other is correct.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying? We try and get people who use our data, and we've done, you were saying, where have we failed? We can't seem to get people who own the boats to tell us how the formulas fit for them after they take them out.
Oh,
we would like to know, hey, did you really have to reef at 18, or did you reef at 22? Did you reef at 12? You know, does she actually do that in the base speed? And I'm gonna let Cal talk about that base speed.
Right. So you're actually looking for owner stats of how the boats perform according to your formulas. Interesting.
But regardless of whether we get those, the relationship between the equations from boat to boat, we believe are real, based on those specifications.
Great. So tell us about the new updated version of multidynamics.com. What's coming up next?
Well, have you got a copy of the website there for you to look at? Have you seen it?
I don't have it up right now, no.
Okay, it's a half a page. So remember that? Remember that it's only half the page of whatever screen you're using. So it'll be a full page website to begin with. So it'll be easier to read. And the boats will be depicted more with pictures as well as names. So we'll have pictures of the boat, or we hope to have pictures of every boat. And we believe selecting those you want to compare will actually be easier.
Okay. All right, great.
The one part of the website that I think is really cool is Cal's evals, and that's where Cal does evaluations of specific boats, whether we pick it or somebody asks us to do one. And we've done evaluations where we've had 4 or 5 boats together where we've charted all that and graphed all that for people who were looking at 4 or 5 different boats. But
Yeah,
we again stress, go ahead, Cal.
I try to pick the boats that are about the same length so that I can get that kind of a comparison. And some of them are 18 or 20 boats in the set, depending on what the database contains.
In the new website, you'll actually be able to choose perhaps up to 20 boats to compare at a time. I'm not sure if we'll have that many options. Right now, you can compare 2.
Oh, wow. So multi comparison capabilities.
If you go to the multi-hull comparison page, it will take you to a choice of where you can choose to compare catamarans, trimarans, or compare catamarans and trimarans. You can choose that. And below that is a little used device that we are going to expand called the advanced search option. And in the advanced search options, once you've done the readings and you've kind of begun to understand what you're looking for in numbers, because in time you will be, okay, I want something that does more than 9 knots. I want something that can handle at least 15 knots before I have to read. Once you begin to get these things that you know you want, in the advanced search option, you can actually post those specifications you want, and it will bring up the boats that match that.
Oh, great. Excellent. Well, that
Yeah,
sounds fantastic.
it is. It's been there all along, but it's just kind of tucked away. And unless you really dig into it, it doesn't get used. So between that and Cal and I both think the custom the custom page where you can put in the data of for any boat you like. For example, all of our boats are calculated on windward sail area, which is the smaller sail area. And we do that. Why don't you explain why we do that, Cal?
Well, we do that so that it's an apples to apples comparison. You know, a lot of boats have large jibs, large Genoas, and so forth. And so we just use the 4 triangle, just not the biggest sail they have, but the 4 triangle in the main. And again, that gives us a fair comparison of one boat against the other.
So, because anybody can put on more sail, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Melissa. So, I mean, anybody can add a chute or make their boat faster, right? So, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get them where they're equal.
Right.
So, a person may want to know, okay, well, this is great that my boat is faster than that boat when we're on windward sail dimensions, but what's it like when I have my Genoa out and I've got my spinnaker out? And you can put all that on, and see how it will affect the speed of the boat, how it will affect the stability of the boat, whether it will increase or decrease its stability. Logically, it will decrease it. But my point is, you're not stuck with the numbers we give you. You can modify that and expand your own understanding of the boat you're interested in.
Oh, fantastic. Wow, that sounds very exciting for all those curious about different multi-hull boat designs. Really.
So if I could get one thing back, and I think Cal would feel the same way, if we could get the real displacement weights and we could get feedback from those who use the site about how it fits for their boat, that would be a big thing to us.
All right. Did you hear that? All those multi-hull owners out there, please send in. Let us know how all these owners can contact you with all their specifications and.
They just look us up on email us.
Email you.
Tell us, hey, I've got a Katana 42, and this is what my experience was at these winds at this direction, etc.
Right. So what are your emails? How can people contact you directly?
right on the website, we have you go there, it says contact, and up will come a box, and you just tell us what it is you want. We ask people if they want boats for us to add, let us know. They do that.
Yeah,
Great.
how did Richard find you, Pat? We were talking
Well,
about that before you got on.
Richard's got an interesting story. You and I started this site, and I think about 6 months to a year later, Richard started his site. And I remember it clear as a bell that because there were so few multi-hull sites, you know, we were like treading water together to stay alive. And so I always admired him. And he and I just chatted one day, and he ended up putting a link for our website on his catamaran site. He right away put that up. So he's always been a big supporter of ours.
Great. So the website is multihulldynamics.com, and you can reach out to Cal and Pat directly through that website. And thank you so much for all the fantastic research that you've done and giving owners, potential owners.
Cal's done the lion's share of that.
What's that?
I say Cal has done the lion's share of that. I've had the fun part of putting the articles together on the site. We have a really good technical page, and we have interesting waypoints page where we have designers and other information like that that's really helpful.